Let me just lay it out there. We are about to perform a complete, deep dive, cinematic autopsy on the sheer, unadulterated madness that is Evil Dead Burn. What we're actually looking at here is a film that feels exactly like the glorious, blood-soaked love child of Fede Alvarez's brutal 2013 reimagining and the totally unhinged, chaotic energy of the original classics. We are seeing a tone that takes that pure, visceral 2013 horror, grabs the dial, and just violently cranks it all the way up to 11. The atmosphere we're dealing with is completely suffocating, the blood is practically pouring out of the frame, and I am honestly so incredibly enthusiastic to break every single piece of this down for you. We really need to slow things right down today. We're going to look at what is essentially an absolute masterclass in tension and terror and see exactly how it's being built, piece by agonizing piece.
But hey, before we dig into the viscera and the gore, I really need to issue a massive, totally earnest spoiler warning. Seriously, what I am about to decode for you covers practically the entire narrative arc of this absolute nightmare. By meticulously analyzing this footage together, we're going to be looking at pivotal key moments from the first, second, and third acts. We are literally going to look at the anatomy of these scares frame by frame to see exactly how the dread is meticulously constructed from the ground up. So if you're the kind of person who wants to go into this movie completely blind, consider this your official warning to tap out. But if you're a focused learner, if you absolutely love to understand the underlying mechanics of horror and how a movie builds its dread, then stay right here. Let's decode this nightmare together.
Now, the agonizing tension of this domestic horror actually begins with a terrifyingly simple setup. Notice how Tandy Wright's character is just casually loading the dishwasher. But, and here's where the dread kicks in, she deliberately places the knives and forks with the blades pointing upward. As a horror fan, every single psychological alarm bell in your head should be ringing right now. I mean, not only is it just a massive health hazard in real life, but cinematically, it immediately establishes an environment where completely mundane household objects are primed to become lethal weapons. It is an exquisite, perfect slow burn setup. It's whispering to us that the danger is already inside the house, lurking right there in the kitchen appliances long before any of the supernatural elements even arrive on the scene.
Let me explain the tragic foundation of this story, because it is absolutely brutal. Our focal protagonist here is Alice, played so brilliantly by Suella Jacob, and the setup they've given her is a totally unique brand of hell. Think about it. Alice is already a deeply traumatized, grieving widow, and she is trapped in a completely isolated location with her in-laws. Now, there's an inherent kind of claustrophobic anxiety to being stuck with in-laws under normal everyday circumstances, right? But to compound that everyday stress with the profound, shattering emotional weight of just losing her husband, only to then be confronted with a physical, grotesque fight for survival against his own family, it is a brilliant, entirely suffocating narrative foundation. It's literally the ultimate out of the frying pan into the fire scenario, perfectly layering deep emotional trauma right over top of extreme physical terror.
And this specific dynamic illustrates exactly how the nightmare truly begins. We witness what looks like a very traditional, incredibly somber funeral for Alice's husband, William. And in a moment of just devastating raw grief, William's mother utters those fatal, terrifying words, "I'd do anything to have him back." The absolutely crucial point here is that this mother's unbearable sorrow is what directly leads to the summoning. And then we get this incredibly grim contrast. From a place of desperate absurdity, a mysterious Book of the Dead is literally pulled out of a garbage bag. It's a deeply misguided, desperate bid to resurrect her dead son. Grief itself literally becomes the ultimate catalyst for the demonic invasion we're about to witness.
As this grief really starts to take hold, we are presented with this striking, incredibly atmospheric visual. We see snow falling outside, creating this quiet, freezing isolation, while Alice is seen inside a dilapidated shed reading from this flesh-bound book. Now, if you know anything at all about the Necronomicon, you inherently know that reading from a book bound in human flesh is just the ultimate cursed action. The lore of this universe strictly dictates that doing so is capable of releasing the devil on Earth. The chilling isolation of that snowy cabin, mixed with the ancient, forbidden text, is just pure, unadulterated gothic horror. By reading those specific words out loud, Alice is sealing her doomed fate and plunging the entire family into a relentless, inescapable nightmare. Which brings us to a massive, incredibly important lore question that I want to pose to all of you. Which Necronomicon is this exactly? We know from previous iterations of the franchise that there are multiple volumes of the Book of the Dead floating around out there. The mystery surrounding this specific volume is incredibly intriguing to think about. And the moment that incantation is spoken, the film wastes absolutely no time. It immediately violently shifts into those classic hyperkinetic Sam Raimi sweeping camera movements. We all know that exact feeling, right? That frantic, rushing, low-angle point of view shot just tearing through the woods. It physically pushes the unseen evil force straight toward our characters, creating this incredible, inescapable momentum that tells you it's already too late. As that iconic camera rushes in, we get a really fantastic look at our setting. The set design here is just wonderfully dilapidated, creating a really tactile, terrifying environment that feels perfectly at home in a classic Evil Dead film. But what's truly fascinating, and what longtime fans are going to lose their minds over, is that the exterior of the house is actually Ruby's house from the Ash vs. Evil Dead television series. For those who might need a quick refresher, Ruby was a dark, immortal figure deeply entangled with the Necronomicon's ancient origins. It's this beautiful, nostalgic callback that so deeply enriches the universe. It grounds this new, terrifying chapter in a location that already holds a deep, incredibly dark history within the franchise's overarching mythology. So how exactly does this specific family connect to that dark history? We are presented with a really heavy thematic title card that simply reads, "Family is the root of all evil." This strongly implies that the Necronomicon didn't just accidentally end up in a trash bag. No, it came from someone buried deep within this particular family's dark past. The supernatural threat we are seeing here is inherited, and this brilliantly explains why Alice is our focal point. As an in-law, she is an outsider looking in. She isn't bound by that same cursed bloodline, making her the absolutely perfect, desperate survivor to witness the sins of her new family literally tearing them all apart from the inside out.
Okay, let's dive into the weaponry, because let's be honest, it wouldn't be a proper deep dive into this franchise without breaking down the absolute carnage. We see Alice wielding what is definitely destined to become an iconic weapon in horror history, a circular saw attached to an elongated neck. I mean, just imagine the visceral, deafening screech of that blade biting into bone, the relentless splatter of blood painting the white snow outside. It is giving massive, old-school Dead Alive vibes. We actually see Alice executing a maneuver I can really only describe as a reverse Santa chimney drop. She's climbing out of the chimney to violently slaughter deadites that are just crawling all over the roof of the house. It's pure, insanely inventive cinematic chaos, and I am here for it. Now, the absolute most shocking storytelling choice here is figuring out how exactly the previous film, Evil Dead Rise, fits into this new nightmare. We aren't just looking at an isolated, standalone story anymore. We are looking at a direct, literal narrative bridge. The filmmakers are intricately weaving the timeline together, confirming that the horrors unleashed in the city during the last film have immediate, catastrophic consequences that ripple far outward into this new rural setting. It shows us that the evil is incredibly contagious and it is spreading fast. Let me explain exactly how they make this massive connection. We get a very specific, undeniable sequence showing Jessica, the character from the absolutely unforgettable opening of Evil Dead Rise, hovering ominously over a lake. She is in full, terrifying deadite form, brutally attacking a fisherman in a boat. It is a jarring, terrifying shift in location. We move completely away from the claustrophobic, concrete urban apartment complex of Rise, straight into this vast, isolating, open lake setting. This explicitly shows us that Evil Dead Burn is seemingly picking up at the exact horrifying moment the previous movie ended, tracking the actual physical movement of the evil across the map. This perfectly bookended sequence illustrates what could be a potential new formula for the franchise moving forward. If the fifth film leads this directly into this sixth film, we absolutely have to look ahead to number 7. It strongly theorizes that this specific lakeside sequence might be establishing a narrative chain directly setting up the foundational events for the upcoming 7th installment, which is reportedly titled Evil Dead Wrath. This is just an incredible evolution of the franchise's overarching cinematic universe structure. It's a fascinating, highly structured way to build a vast mythology without ever once losing the intimate, claustrophobic terror of the individual localized stories. We really need to slow down for a second and meticulously break down the micro details of this carnage, because the visual storytelling happening right here is just staggering. We see Lucien Buchanan's character violently bursting through a front door with an entire child's car seat literally impaled into the back of her head. It's insane. We are also introduced to a terrifying, fully realized deadite dog, which adds this incredibly unpredictable, feral element to the assault. It is exactly these visceral, grotesquely creative details that showcase a deep, genuine commitment to practical, wince-inducing horror. It's the texture of the terror that makes it so unbelievably effective. There is a fascinating, wonderfully gruesome continuity detail hidden within the gore that I actually managed to track down. Early on in the narrative, we see a character named Neptune brutally slamming Lucian's fingers, which are distinctly painted with these bright yellow nails, into a car door. It's a total wince-inducing moment of preliminary violence, but it pays off so perfectly later on. When Lucian finally appears in her full, horrifying deadite form, she is notably missing 4 fingers. It's an absolute masterclass in tracing the timeline of a mutilation. It perfectly rewards the focused learner who actually pays attention to the cause and effect of the on-screen brutality. And that brilliant detail leads us straight into pure, unadulterated carnage. I absolutely have to highlight the utterly horrific shot of a deadite just casually drinking molten wax straight from a lit candle. It's a surreal, completely sickening visual that completely subverts human logic, which is of course a true hallmark of deadite possession. We also see a brutal, visceral moment where a jagged piece of broken porcelain is violently smashed directly into a deadite's face. This is clearly a direct, incredibly loving homage to the infamous, stomach-churning bathroom fight from the 2013 reboot. It shows a deep reverence for utilizing everyday, mundane bathroom fixtures as instruments of extreme, intimate violence. So, do you remember that agonizing dishwasher setup from the very beginning? Let me walk you step by step through its absolutely horrifying payoff. Step 1. The knives are deliberately left facing up, setting the trap. Step 2. A terrifying deadite suddenly, violently scares Hunter Duhan's character in the kitchen. Step 3. In his sheer panic, he trips backward, suffering a fatal, unavoidable fall directly onto those exposed blades. But Step 4. Step 4 is where the agonizing inevitability truly, deeply sets in. The deadite mother actually climbs on top of him, using her dead, supernatural body weight to physically crush the dishwasher door down, driving the knives impossibly deeper into him. It is a flawless, excruciating execution of suspense and release. As we connect all these horrifying pieces, we can clearly see the trajectory heading straight toward an explosive, massive final act. The cold, quiet, isolating snow of the tragic summoning in the shed is going to be entirely consumed by the roaring, chaotic spectacle of the climax. We get these huge, sweeping shots of the property's gazebo entirely engulfed in raging flames, with deadites physically trapped inside. The violence scales up exponentially here. We're moving from the quiet, agonizing claustrophobia of a kitchen trap to the massive, roaring inferno of the entire house catching fire. The elements themselves are literally at war. Based on all this highly structured evidence we've just walked through, I will confidently lay out my prediction for the emotional and literal climax of the film. The mother's tragic, deeply flawed wish to be together again with her dead son is going to backfire spectacularly. Her wish will recontextualize itself, turning the entire family, including the resurrected William, into a unified, horrific pack of deadites. To survive, Alice won't just have to kill her horrific in-laws, she will be forced to literally burn the entire house down with her resurrected husband trapped inside it. It is a moment of profound, poetic, and utterly tragic irony. She must violently cremate the very man she was grieving in order to simply survive the night. As we pull back and look at the big picture here, the really crucial point to remember is the truly flawless track record of this entire franchise. From the scrappy, brilliant, low-budget ingenuity of the original to the utterly unhinged slapstick gore of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, all the way through the grim, blood-drenched intensity of the 2013 reboot and the suffocating urban terror of Rise. The sentiment holds completely true. There is no bad Evil Dead thing. And judging by the meticulous craftsmanship, the heavy psychological weight, and the raw, unadulterated terror we've just decoded together, this film looks absolutely guaranteed to continue that legendary, unbroken streak.
Which finally brings us to our last, provocative question for this incredibly deep dive. Are you ready to let it burn? Having just walked through the entire grisly anatomy of this cinematic nightmare, understanding the deep grief, the gruesome micro-details, and the sprawling, interconnected lore, did we just uncover a little too much of the nightmare? Or is this precise, methodical breakdown exactly what you needed to get your blood pumping for the release? Keep these intricate puzzle pieces in mind the next time you brave a horror film. Until our next cinematic autopsy, stay focused, stay curious, and thanks for exploring the absolute darkness with me.